Messy garage again. Today I'm going to do a little troubleshooting on my Hemingway bike. It's got some problems, and I bought this little guy on Amazon, so I'm going to give it a shot here. I'll see if I can focus in on that. But it's a motor and controller and brake tester, all made for a electric bike. So we'll give that a test today, and you can learn along with me. So I haven't used it yet. Okay, so now I got it set up for testing the motor. And what I did here, you disconnected the motor, and the 3 leads, I put some extension leads on here just for the video, but they go up to the controller. But you don't really need that. But so you got the blue, green, and the yellow leads going into the controller. And what you're going to look out for here, I'll turn on this switch here. Okay, that's the, if you can see under there, that's the battery indicator, so that just means it has power. Now, coming back over here to the instructions, we'll read the instructions here on this. Now, these instructions are a kind of a Chinese interpretation, so they're not all clear, but you can interpret them pretty well. So when you hook up the motor, what you're going to do is see 3 of those LEDs kind of twinkle. And if all 3 are twinkling, you have a good motor. And if one of them doesn't twinkle, you probably have a 1 phase out. These are 3-phase motors, so let's give it a shot. Okay, sorry for the shaky video. I don't have a helper here, but so here's what we're going to look at for is on these motors, these LEDs right here to twinkle. So we're going to rotate the motor backwards and look at those. Okay, looks like they're all twinkling. So that tells me, according to the directions, this is a good motor. So we'll move on to another test. Might do the brakes. I can't do the motor control right now because I know that's bad. I've tested that earlier with an ohm meter, so we'll move on to another test that this controller can do right now. Okay, now we'll go into the brake lever testing here. I had to do a little bit of jiggering the wiring here to make it work, but it works fine. It's just a little hard to get into the connector, so I'll show you what I did there. Yeah, as you can see here, the connectors in there are very small, so here's what I did here. So I made just a couple little pieces of wire here on some connectors, so I'll test it with that, and then we should see the light. Okay, so this is the brake check on this little meter here. It's basically a continuity check of your brake switches in there. So we're gonna do a little probe into their small little connectors, but and then my helper brother here is gonna do the cable. So go ahead with the brake. See the light going off and on. So that tells me that switch is good. So that test is good. And we'll move on to the throttle next. The light go off and on there. So that's just basically a continuity test there, but that shows you that brake lever is working properly. And I'll test the actual brake lever here. Now, okay, so this is going to be the throttle test. So we got our 3 throttle leads hooked up here, which is basically a potentiometer in their resistor. So we're going to test that. Now this little light here is the one that tests the throttle. And by the intensity, you can tell that the resistance changes on the throttle. So I'm going to twist the throttle here, and if you look at this light a little closer, you'll see it come on. And as I twist it further, it gets brighter and brighter. So you know that's a good throttle. So it's doing the whole thing. So I'll go back down a couple times and up, and that's a good throttle. So we're done with the throttle test. We'll move on. Okay, these are little connectors I had to make for these Hemingways. They're just made with little pieces of real thin wire plus thin wire insulation. So basically how they're made is just a piece of wire comes through the insulation here, and then you bend it over. So it makes a pretty good connection there. Otherwise you'd have to buy a connector, a reverse connector for this. So it's one way you can do it. And any other e-bike you could probably do the same thing.